Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Gosh, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk this morning on the first 3 of the 7 principles of UU. One being the inherent worth and dignity of every person. 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships. And 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. I searched for a long time for the congregation that would fit me. And boy, it was a long journey. I didn't find you guys until I was 67 years old. Where were you all that time? So I'm going to kind of parallel my journey a little bit that line up with these principles. And first of all, I don't know how many of you know the Myers-Briggs, but I am an INFP. And if that gives you a little clue, I am a total off-the-wall idealist. Always, I've lived in an idealist world where I thought it would be perfect if we everybody loved everybody. That was me. The movement in the '60s, the hippie movement and things like that. I said, well, we're heading in the right direction. Because I was such a happy guy after I got out of the service, and I was really looking for my destiny. And after I got out of the service and went with the GI Bill to Wichita State University, and I was really trying to find myself there. And it was difficult to do when you'd study with a pitcher of beer at the local bar to try to figure out who you were. So finally it dawned on me one day that this isn't working. I ended up going into treatment for my alcohol addiction, and with the grace of God, I'll be sober 40 years in February, Valentine's Day of next year. And along the way, I did find myself. I developed in 1993 a treatment for alcoholics and drug addicts, because you see, I'd been traveling the country with the Employee Assistance Program, the Rio Grande Railroad, looking for places that would take the railroaders I had, and I kept looking for the perfect, ideal treatment. And I always thought there was a better way that I could do it than what was shown. And so I got my opportunity in 1993 to develop my own program. And one of the first things I did was, I'll share with you my basic philosophy, which kind of lines up with the inherent worth and dignity of every person that we have here. Our philosophy, we believe that each client is a unique human being and is to be treated with unconditional honor, regardless of attitudes, opinions, judgments, beliefs, race, sexual orientation, or religion. We present positive empowerment strategies that can enhance each person's efforts to achieve and maintain a quality of life that is positive in nature. We inspire each person to strive for excellence by presenting the program in a positive manner. And I remember I presented that to Olympus View Hospital, and they had 2 of us competing for the intensive outpatient program, and we both had our intensive outpatient. And so they brought both of us in to talk to the doctors, and he went first, and he used the rational emotive approach, which is good. It's very rational, very logical. And mine was built on heart empowerment, the passion and compassion of the heart. And I explained to them how we have head judgments and emotional reactions, and right smack in the middle is this beautiful heart. And if we take it to the heart, we get a lot better results, especially working with alcoholics and drug addicts, and it'll balance them out. So after I left, they took a vote, and I didn't get any votes. I guess they didn't understand the message. So I said, well, I don't know if it'll work myself because I hadn't used it yet. So I started in November, and we got up to, it took about 6 months to get to 6 clients. But by February, the other guy had dropped out. They fired him, so it was on my shoulders. And by August, we had 42 people in treatment, so it was starting to work. And from then on, it worked, and it worked, and it got better. And I knew it would. One of the lessons that I taught was from a book called Sanity, Insanity, and Common Sense. Has anybody heard of that book? Few, okay. Very few. But the book made sense to me because the book talked about, and this was great, not only for alcoholics and drug addicts, for anybody in general, that there are 4 fixed principles common to all of us in order to understand how our mind works. They are: 1, each human being is capable of conceiving thought and then able to create a thought process. 2, each human being has a separate and individual reality because of his or her own unique and creative thought process. 3, each human being is capable of understanding the creation of their own mental functioning. And 4, each human being can utilize feelings and emotions as measuring sticks of the quality and direction of their own mental functioning. So in other words, the first principle, capable of conceiving thought and then able to create a thought process. We have the ability to think, and that we use this ability to develop and store a thought process. Within this process or system of thought is a vast scheme of habitual thought patterns, which includes judgments, beliefs, opinions, expectations, concepts, attitudes, and assumptions. Now, when I first arrived here, I was so welcome. It was unbelievable. When I walked in there, and all of you did not know my belief systems, where I come from. You didn't care because I was here. And I had a worth and a dignity about me that you felt I deserved to have. And that was very, very important to me. I finally felt that I was home. The second principle, in essence, means that each of us has a separate and individual reality perception that is based upon one's own particular beliefs and prejudices. Okay. This was very interesting to me because I had always, not always, but a lot of times would base whether I liked the person or not on their belief system. Where this is saying, no 2 people have the same belief system. I doubt if identical twins have actually, everything exactly the same. One might have a favorite color of blue and the other purple, for instance. But this was amazing to me. And I like it that we accept everyone in here, no exceptions. And I'm sorry, but I don't find that in many churches out there. I just don't. But I find it here. And I'm very, very glad and happy about that. Because that frees me up, you see, to share with you and love you and honor you. And you do the same for me. Because, the Native Americans, which I'm very fond of, I go to the Navajo reservation twice a year. I've got many wonderful Navajo friends. But their belief was that you jumped up and you shared about your Creator, how you saw the earth, how you saw the God of your understanding or Creator or whatever you wanted to call it. And when he got done, everybody clapped. And everyone was received and loved. And that worked fine for him. And I thought, that's fabulous. That's what I want. I want people to say, okay, I can see where you're coming from. That's your beliefs and what's happening, and you're welcome here. That was fabulous. I knew that our program had arrived when I did these lesson plans on different topics and building affirmations, building healthy relationships and different things. one day a person come up afterwards and he says, Steve, he says, I go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he says, yours is such a spiritual, loving, growing program and acceptance of God and everything. He says, I just love it. And I says, well, thank you. The next night, I gave another lesson plan, and this guy comes up and says, Steve, I'm an atheist. He said, I just love your program. You haven't mentioned God once. He said, this is terrific. I thought, well, thank you very much. So that felt good. I knew I hit something that worked. And everybody in the room seemed to accept everyone where they were at. Principle 3 is each human being is capable of understanding the creation of their own mental functioning. In other words, we started looking at things and understanding, oh, okay. I started looking at things when I sobered up, and I understood where I got some of that thinking. And I also knew that what was very important is that I'm one of these guys that reaches for the sky. I want higher mental functioning. I don't want to wallow in that and feel sorry for myself and get negative. Excuse me. I want to be more positive, more upbeat, and change that and smile more and be happy and tell jokes and whatever. And that's, if you've been around the church, you know that's the type of guy I am. Right, Mike? Yeah. And then the fourth is, if each human being can utilize feelings and emotions as measuring sticks of the quality and direction of their own mental thinking, mental functioning. And this was important because if I start getting down, then I know that I can switch gears with that. And I can bring my thinking up. You see, a powerful statement that I use a lot that really makes sense to me is what you think about expands. I love that statement. All I got to do is, where's my thinking going? If it's expanding in a negative direction, I'm going to expand my negative energy. But if it's expanded in a positive direction or a loving, heartfelt connection, it's going to be so much better. So that's what I like about here, is no matter what your belief system is, or has been in the past, or whatever your beliefs is in religion or whatever, you're welcome here. You're welcome here. We're not going to put you down for that. And that's the way it works. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. That's the second one. And I developed a heart empowerment system, which I really love, which has several parts to it. One is courage. You know what I love about UU is it takes courage to do the kind of things that so many of you do. Social justice. Getting out there, you know. Willing to say, go ahead, arrest me. I think I'm right and you're wrong. We want justice for everybody, regardless of their situation, because we have a compassion. We have a passion for this compassion that we love people with all our hearts. Another big one is appreciation. I have to tell you, one of the most powerful moments in my life was when I come home from Vietnam in 1966 in Custer, South Dakota, and I walked in our home. And I saw my mom, and she gave me a hug, says, welcome home, son. And I saw my dad, and I says, hey, Dad. And he says, oh, hell. He grabbed me and gave me a big hug. And he says, son, I love you. That was the most powerful emotion, a powerful emotion for me. And you know, my dad, who was a deacon in the Catholic Church, accepted me and my spirituality and where I was going, because that's the kind of humility my father had. And when he died, I was glad that we could all be around and say goodbye to my father, because he was just a giant, but a very humble way. And one time I asked him, well, Dad, what's your main job as deacon of the church? And he says, well, he says, I'm supposed to visit with those that have fallen away from the faith and find out why and see if they'll come back. He says, what do you think of that? I said, job security. That's true. You never had to worry about a job. Now, I want to talk a little bit about compassion, because this church is so full of compassion. I can't believe I get choked up every time I think about it. Going over there for that pause deal, and I just think, Pat, what you leading that up is just terrific. And we have Standing on the Love, we have the Navajo deal, we go to the prison, and my good buddy John Fleming has got ideas coming all the time, and he's got such a passion and compassion for any program he gets into. And he's always thinking of ways to help the prisoners that are in prison. And when we went a week ago Friday, that chaplain, when we left, says, man, these guys are the happiest of anybody that comes to visit these guys. I don't know what you guys do to them, but they are fired up, charged up. They like to be here. And I'd like to think that John Fleming has a lot to do with that, because he's taken a creative writing class behind walls to the prisoners one of those weeks. And Marge is right there beside him. So I think it's powerful. That's what we do. We've got lots of programs. I don't think Vince is here today. He's across the country somewhere getting arrested on his latest adventure. You know. So I love it. And I'd also like to talk about forgiveness just a little bit. Because forgiveness, I want to tell you a true story about the Navajos when we go there, deliver food and adopt a native elder. And I had a counselor that worked for me in Salt Lake City, and she was writing a project, a thesis, for our master's degree. And it was on the Indian movement and things about Native Americans. And she says, I want to read this to you. And a portion of it had to do with Sitting Bull when he was on a reservation, and this general called him in and says, listen, you might think you're chief of a Sioux Nation and all that. He says, but you're just another Indian to me, and you'll get one blanket, just buy everything else, and I don't care what you want for your people, blah, blah, blah. Treated him just terribly. And then she said, the general in question was General John A. Logan. Now, this might not mean much to you, but General John A. Logan is my great-great-uncle, okay? And that's been shoved down my throat since I was a little kid. And I was mortified when I saw how he had treated the Lakota Sioux and the Dakota Sioux. And anyway, I says, I have to do something about this. So the co-founder of the program is Gracie Yellowhammer. And I said to myself, Yellowhammer is a Sioux name. It is not a Navajo name. What's the gives? See, she introduced me to her husband. It was Richard Yellowhammer. And he says, yes, I'm a Dakota Sioux. So Linda had arranged that Richard went up with me because he was a Vietnam veteran like I was, and she thought maybe we'd have things in common. So we get to talking, and Richard says, I am a direct descendant of Sitting Bull. Aha, forgiveness. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I had that opportunity, and I says, Richard, have I got a story for you? And I told him about that. And I says, I just want you to know my great-great-uncle was wrong. I'm sorry, and I apologize. And he said, thanks. I accept your apology. So that was a healing right there on the spot. And those stories just, I love those stories. So the last part, I have a heck of a time. Do you mind if I go a couple minutes over? Just hold on there. The last thing is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. And this is this church is fantastic for that. Number one, you honor we honor each person's individuality. These heart groups, which Tanner and I have been in several of them, honor that individuality. You get an opportunity to share who you are, your individuality, how it sticks out, how it's different. Of course, the other thing we do is we give you this form that has, we want you to list all your talents and what you've done and everything else, because of course we want you to volunteer for this or that or what have you, you know. So if you haven't filled that out, be sure to fill that out. We want to honor your individuality, really. Secondly, another building block, and this is one of my lesson plans, but it lines up with this so well, is feeling safe and secure. And when I get here and I park my car and I start walking in here, before I get in that door, I already start feeling safe and secure. Number one, I know nobody's going to walk up to me and call me names or say they don't like the way I believe. That doesn't happen here. It just doesn't happen. So I feel safe and secure. Number three is be open, vulnerable, and transparent. Now, I don't mean we go around and boo-hoo and I need you to know exactly who I am and Leon and so forth. No, we don't do that. But what it means is if you get in a heart group or something else, something that we have, we do open up more. We do share who we are. Okay? We honor each other's willingness to be open, vulnerable, and transparent. But don't we do that every time we do these too? I mean, think about it. Joys and sorrows. We get up here and spill our guts sometimes because we love that person. Or we have a joy when someone gets married. Adrian, I want to report after you get back. I want to know about that. Where'd she go? There you go. Okay? Because those are loving moments. That's Kodak moments. The last thing is we encourage and honor storytelling. I don't know about you, but the election coming up this year in politics just overwhelms everything. I'd rather watch the Hallmark Channel. Let's face it. There's sometimes we just overloaded with too much stuff, okay? So it's nice to encourage and honor storytelling. And Jess Lair, who was a friend of mine, he wrote, I Ain't Much Baby, But I'm All I've Got. He was real popular in the 60s and the 70s. And one of my friends said, oh, Jess, you're so popular. He says, well, I used to be. But he told me, he says, always remember, make a point and tell a story about the point. Or you tell a story and then make the point why you told the story. And he was a natural storyteller, and he mesmerized me. I could listen to Jess for hours, tell his stories, and he could weave wonderful stories. And a lot of us are storytellers, and they're true incidents that happen. We like to know about you more, and your storytelling brings that out. So I want to say in closing that I miss Ron. I hope he is here next week, simply because Ron has got a unique humor I've never heard before. It's the kind that, I don't know how to explain it. It's just quirky. It's a little off-center that catches you off guard, but it's beautiful when it happens. And I don't expect it, but man, do I laugh. He's a wonderful, caring human being and a welcome addition to our community. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share with you today. That's it.